Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to unpack one of the most profoundly complex and honestly challenging works in Western literature. We're talking about Fyodor Dostoevsky's 19th century masterpiece, The Idiot. We're going to dive deep into the characters, the underlying themes, and these incredibly intense social dynamics to understand exactly why this story is still an absolute masterclass in psychology, faith, and human frailty. And, by the end of this, it might just completely change how you look at the whole concept of goodness.
So think of this whole story as a giant philosophical experiment. Dostoevsky essentially wanted to take a positively good man, basically a modern Christ-like figure, and just drop him right into the cynical, hyper-materialistic shark tank of 19th century Russian high society. He just wanted to see what would happen. And well, as we're about to see, the result is anything but peaceful.
Section 1. The Positively Good Man.
Okay, to set up this tragic collision, we first need to meet our main guy, Prince Myshkin. This is the man that high society ironically slaps with the label, the idiot. Now, what makes him so wildly disruptive is his complete and total lack of social vanity. He's a destitute nobleman returning to Russia after spending years in a Swiss clinic, and he comes back with this entirely unguarded heart and zero capacity for duplicity. He literally just reads the unspoken suffering of everyone in the room. But here's the catch. In a society that is entirely built on polite lies, his absolute unfiltered honesty and this radical empathy, people just mistake it for foolishness.
A really vital piece of Myshkin's puzzle is his epilepsy. Dostoevsky actually taps into his own personal medical history here, and he meticulously details what's called the epileptic aura. It's this fleeting, split second of infinite cosmic peace right before a seizure strikes, but it's immediately followed by a terrifying, animalistic physical collapse. It's such a brilliant way of showing us that in a flawed physical world, moments of the absolute highest spiritual illumination literally destroy the human brain. Because he lives so intimately close to his own mortality, Myshkin firmly believes that stripping away human hope is the ultimate evil. There's this incredible moment early on where he talks about witnessing a guillotine execution in Lyons. He argues that the absolute certainty of impending death is actually way worse than the act of murder itself. It's exactly this radical empathy, this absolute, rock-solid insistence on human dignity and hope that dictates every single interaction he has.
Section 2. A Web of Broken Souls.
So what actually happens when Myshkin's pure light hits this corrupted society? Well, it acts like a massive catalyst. It just accelerates all the greed and trauma of the Russian elite. And right at the absolute center of this messy social web is our tragic heroine, Nastasya. She's a woman of just extraordinary beauty, but she's completely defined by this profound, agonizing psychological wounding. She was orphaned and exploited from a very young age by a wealthy landowner, and she carries this deep self-loathing, but she masks it with a really prideful, mocking exterior. She fiercely rejects the hypocritical society that ruined her, but at the same time, she doesn't actually feel worthy of being saved.
And wow, does she ever show her absolute defiance. Picture this. It's her birthday party, and this dark, obsessive merchant named Rogozhin literally tries to buy her with 100,000 rubles. Just to mock the sheer greed of her supposedly respectable suitors, Nastasya takes that massive fortune, which by the way would be the equivalent of millions of dollars today, and flings it straight into a roaring fireplace. She even challenges a greedy clerk to pull it out with his bare hands. It is literally one of the most legendary dramatic gestures of a woman choosing total destruction over submission.
Section 3. Passion versus Pity.
Nastasya's chaotic exit from that party sets up a seriously high-stakes battlefield between two completely opposite extremes. On one hand, we've got Parfyon Rogozhin. He represents Eros. His love is this manic, fierce, physical possessiveness. He's the kind of guy who will literally destroy Nastasya just so he can own her completely. On the other hand, we have Prince Myshkin, representing Agape. His love is entirely selfless, non-physical compassion. He just has this agonizing desire to save her sanity. And poor Nastasya is just caught violently bouncing between these two competing forces.
This whole tension reaches a boiling point in Rogozhin's incredibly gloomy, dark house. They're standing there looking at a copy of Hans Holbein's painting, The Body of the Dead Christ in the Tomb. It's a stark, hyper-realistic, totally bleak image of a decomposing corpse with absolutely zero hint of divine light. Myshkin is just horrified. He realizes right then and there that if physical death is really this absolute, then faith and pure goodness might just get completely crushed by the cold, unforgiving laws of nature.
Section 4. The Tragic Collapse.
So as rumors start swirling about Myshkin's bizarre, compassionate love life, high society decides they're going to formally put this positively good man to the test at a really grand summer dinner party. Right before they go in, his new romantic interest, Aglaya Yapinchina, who is this proud, sheltered girl who loves his moral compass but is absolutely terrified of his social awkwardness, gives him a frantic, desperate list of rules. She says absolutely no passionate speeches about religion, no frantic hand gestures, and whatever you do, please do not break the priceless antique Chinese vase sitting right next to your chair.
And, well, you can probably guess what happens. It turns into an absolute catastrophe. The really tragic irony here is that society puts on these superficial, polite masks, and Myshkin completely misinterprets it. He genuinely thinks their fake smiles are real warmth. Driven to total ecstasy by what he thinks is goodness, he launches into a wild monologue, starts waving his arms around, and, yep, shatters the priceless vase into a million pieces. When polite society steps in and hypocritically forgives him, the overwhelming spiritual emotion of it all just pushes his physical brain way past its limit. He suffers a violent epileptic seizure right there, totally ruining himself socially forever.
Section 5. The limits of pure goodness.
Now that he's a total outcast from polite society, Myshkin gets forced into this final, agonizing four-way showdown that really proves just how dangerous absolute empathy can be. Aglaya demands that Myshkin choose her over Nastasya, and she uses some incredibly cold, cutting social cruelty against this deeply traumatized woman. Nastasya completely breaks down into hysterical tears. And right here is where the prince's pure goodness actually fails him. His instinctive, overwhelming pity for Nastasya makes him hesitate. Just for a single moment, but that brief hesitation permanently shatters Aglaya's proud heart. She flees, and his chances at romantic love are completely destroyed.
So, with Aglaya gone, Myshkin just resigns himself to marrying Nastasya out of pure duty to her fragile sanity. But here's the heartbreaking part. Nastasya's self-loathing runs so deep, she's convinced she'll eventually corrupt and ruin this perfectly pure prince. So, she chooses her own doom instead. She's standing outside the church, looking literally as pale as a corpse, when she spots Rogozhin's burning eyes lurking in the crowd. She cries out, "Save me!" and literally runs right from the church altar straight into the arms of a killer.
And the physical reality of a fallen world wins in this terrifying final tableau. Myshkin tracks them down to Rogozhin's house in St. Petersburg. He's led into this pitch-black study that just reeks of disinfectant, and there, beneath a white sheet, is Nastasya's lifeless body. Rogozhin has finally executed his dark, obsessive urge using a horn-handled garden knife.
Dostoevsky's ultimate point hits like a ton of bricks in the agonizing aftermath. Rogozhin completely loses it, descending into a screaming brain fever. But Myshkin, still driven by that pure agape love, absolutely refuses to judge him. He doesn't call the police. He spends the entire long, dark night just lying on the floor, gently stroking the murderer's hair in absolute, boundaryless pity. The sheer trauma and the impossible, crushing weight of all this empathy physically destroy Myshkin's own mind. It leaves him as a silent, empty shell, returning him to a state of complete and absolute idiocy.
As we wrap up this explainer, we're just left staring at the tragic wreckage of these unbelievable characters. Dostoevsky doesn't give us a neat, comforting little bow at the end. Instead, he forces us to confront a really unsettling question about the true cost of radical empathy in a compromised world. Can pure, selfless love actually survive our physical reality, or is it just destined to be crushed by it? Dostoevsky leaves us staring into the dark to figure that one out for ourselves.
Please like and subscribe.